So how are you doing today, Brendan?
I am doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. I want to start off for people who may not be familiar with your work. Can you kind of chart a little bit of the trajectory to when you started pursuing entertainment and where you got now as a writer?
Yeah, absolutely. I got interested in film really young. I knew I wanted to be a director at like 13, 14. That was just it. I don't know. I saw Reservoir Dogs and I was like, yep, that's it. That's what I want to do. And so it was always just sort of a straight arrow to that for me. I did a lot of short. I shot a lot of videos in high school. I went to the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, where I got my degree in film. And the thesis film I made for that is Animosity, which is getting re-released now. And the only other feature I've done so far is Velocipaster, which people might know from being on the internet. So that is basically my trajectory.
So before we start talking about Animosity, which is going to be the bulk of this, can you tell me a little bit about the Velocipaster? Because I believe there's two films, right?
Yeah, I did a fake trailer of it in 2011 when I was still in film school. I did it for a class project. And it was sort of the first thing I made that got any sort of traction online. It was the kind of thing where when every video on my channel had like 5, 10 views, Velocipaster's trailer had like 30, 40,000. It was like an obvious difference in interest. So I tried to kickstart it a couple of times, and it failed a lot. And so eventually I just moved on and I did Animosity. And I couldn't stop thinking about the Velocipaster. So I circled back around to make it feature length after failing yet another crowdfunding campaign. But yeah, by sheer force of hubris, I somehow managed to make it feature length. And now we are looking for funding for the sequel. Yeah.
That's awesome that you followed that through. So to get to Animosity, that's kind of similar thing happened where you initially created this or conceptualized it at least in 2013, and now it
Mhm.
is being re-released. Or is can you tell me about exactly what the difference is and break that down for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So it did come out in 2013. Like I said, it was my student thesis, so I truly didn't expect to sell it whatsoever. So what happened was we played at a couple of festivals. I essentially sold it to the first people that asked to buy it. And the thing was, this was, streaming was around in 2013, but it was not what it is now. It was pretty much Netflix,
Yeah,
if anything.
exactly.
So, this was a film that was made for no money with nobody you've ever heard of. I was nobody you'd ever heard of. And the pitch of it was essentially, it's a hard to pitch movie. It's sort of like a couple moves into a house in the middle of the woods. It's good, trust me. Like like it's very difficult. It's a very difficult sell, even with a couple of festival awards under its belt. So it just went to DVD, and essentially not a lot of people saw it. It has its fans. Like people have talked to me over the years about how much they loved it. Um, but my contract with that company ran up, and I figured now that Velocipaster had had a lot of success, maybe people would be interested in watching Animosity as well. Because now the trust me part of the log line might actually go. And honestly, I just was always sort of like, now that streaming is a thing, it's just so much less of an ask for people. It's like, it's a reasonably big ask with all of those things working against it for somebody to pay $20, $25 for a DVD that might be terrible. But it does not cost nearly as much, literally, to watch it on Amazon Prime. So I'm just hoping it'll fit its audience more now. Yeah.
So it's being re-released. Is there anything different from the original 2013 version, or is this the same exact version just being redistributed?
This is the same version.
So, for people who are unfamiliar and want a little bit more to go on than the tagline, what can you kind of tease for this, or at least compare to it to bring people, that might be more interested in the premise?
Yeah, of course. I saw a review on Letterboxd that compared it to Primer, the Shane Carruth movie. I think that's actually pretty accurate. If you did sort of a primer by way of Rosemary's Baby, it's something in the realm of that. There's some supernatural stuff going on. There's a lot of really it's a depressing film. Kind of like it's really what's the word? Brutal, I would say. But that's what I like about it. I was kind of trying in a lot of ways with it to mimic the Euro horror I really loved. The French films, the Alex Aja films, High Tension, Inside, Frontiers, Martyrs, those kinds of films. I loved those films in college. So I was trying to essentially do that with no money and see what I could do. And here we are.
So, do you like, now that this is being refreshed, or at least revitalized, is this a universe that you would like to continue to play in, or maybe explore other stories in the future? Or do you feel like this is particularly standalone?
I think that the story of the movie in specific is relatively standalone. I don't, it's I've joked with my friends about doing Animosity too, but it's sort of like, if you see the movie, the story, most people are dead by the end of this movie. And it's sort of like, it's an interesting premise. I wouldn't mind returning to it, but I don't have plans to right now. I definitely do want to do more straight horror stuff. I mean, I love making Velocipaster movies. They're fun. They're entertaining, and I genuinely enjoy them. But I also really, really love like feel bad art horror. So it's sort of like I see things like The Witch and Midsummer, and I just get so jealous. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And so I would definitely like to keep playing in this tonal universe, I guess I should say. But yeah, that's how I feel.
So obviously you are a writer. You do a lot of writing, but can you tell me about, like, what other kind of behind the scenes things have you dabbled in as far as productions go? Because I'm sure you learned a lot when you were in film school and going through those things. But like since then, on things like Velocipaster, what things have you ended up having to put your hands in?
Everything. It's sort of like when the budgets are this low, everybody's wearing a couple of hats, at least. I mean, on Velocipaster in specific, I was the writer, director, producer, and editor of that movie. I also appeared in the dinosaur costume. So it's sort of like, you pull on anything you. Oh, I also did the music. I did the opening theme song was my band. So that happened. I performed the ending theme for Animosity as well, now that I'm really thinking about it. So a lot of things like that. Editing in particular, I would say, is the one that I've had the most success with. I worked as an editor for a while at a YouTube company. I have done ghostwriting, things like that. Those are the two easiest, I think, to break into, sort of in the entertainment industry as a whole. My favorite thing to do is the writing, for sure. And it's one of those where it's definitely one of those things I feel like if for some reason I wasn't a filmmaker, I would want to be, I don't know if a novelist, but like something to do with writing, for sure.
So I haven't seen the Velocipaster, but I know you said you were in the dinosaur costume. I was
Sure was.
wondering what kind of practical effects or even VFX might have gone into those movies.
There is almost no CGI in either one. It is I think people use CGI wrong. I think that they use it as the attraction when it should be a tool, essentially. where it's sort of like in Animosity, is CGI. There are gunshots that I was like, we can't afford to fire blanks. We can't put people in danger like that. We don't have a safety crew. We made this film for $14,000. It's like, it's nothing. So there's CGI effects like that, where it's sort of like the muzzle flash is CGI and you sell it with a sound effect. And it actually works really well. I'm like still impressed with our 2013 CGI for those gunshots. Velocipaster, similar things, just like little things like that where you can kind of trim the edges a bit. It was very important to me with both of them to not use CGI for a big effect. For like a blood, like a squib, I wouldn't use CGI for. I wouldn't use CGI for. In Velocipaster, the costume, I was like, this is like a Wolfman movie. If you go to a monster movie and the monster is CGI, it fucking sucks. It's like, it's just not fun. Like even if it looks better or higher fidelity, it's more fun to me to see like a handmade costume there and kind of marvel how they did it. And you can do it well. Like, look at something like Pan's Labyrinth. Like, Jesus, that's just CGI assisted costumes. And it's like that. Del Toro is somebody who knows how to use CGI very well. And I think that I try to emulate, I guess, his example with it. It was never a consideration with either film to have them be heavy on CGI. I mean, also you can play devil's advocate and say I couldn't afford it, but even if I could, I would not toss money at that now.
So besides those projects that we've talked about, and we talked about your past, what else do you have going on right now? Are you specifically focused on promoting, Animosity and maybe making a sequel to VelociPastor, or do you have other projects in the works?
A lot. A lot of other projects as well. Right now, my primary focus is promoting Animosity. I'd love for people to see it, and sort of in the longer term, getting that funding for Velocipaster too. I'm in the middle of recording my next album, which is fun. I'm doing that 2 or 3 times a week. I actually just finished making my first zine. I just compiled it. I just got back from Staples, and I put the dummy copy together. My whole idea, it's a short horror story that I typed out on an old typewriter, and I pasted it almost like a ransom note onto index cards. And then I photocopied it in black and white for quick turnaround and distribution. And my whole idea is that I'm just going to leave anonymous copies around LA and see what happens. And it links to an Instagram that's not me. And I'm just going to see what the hell goes down. I'm also teaching myself how to skateboard. I'm also rock climbing a lot. I want to get back in shape. Teaching myself how to cook. And eventually I have to get around to learning Spanish. Just I want to.
Where are you located with the rock climbing?
I'm in Pasadena, in Los Angeles.
Nice.
Yeah, I have this amazing rock climbing gym that I go to that is actually in an old, no longer used beer brewery. So it sort of has like the old smokestack in there. It's a very cool building. God, I feel like I'm missing something. There was something else I'm supposed to be working on too, but that's sort of the broad strokes of it. I'm one of those people that is always trying to do stuff. I'm very easily bored, I guess. So yeah.
You got to create. So with your music, it sounds like you've been doing music for at least a decade.
Oh yeah.
When did that begin, and how do you balance that against your writing?
So it started in high school. It was, my band is called Free Parking. We have made 4 albums in like 10 years, 4 full-length albums. I don't know how many EPs, a lot. It's all on Spotify now. But yeah, we never toured or anything because it was my high school friend. So very quickly after high school, we just sort of dispersed. But once again, I have hubris. So I managed to, we have still recorded 3 albums, even not being in the same room. And honestly, some of our best work, weirdly. We made an album in 2012 or 13 called Asuka, that's based on Neon Genesis Evangelion. That
Oh,
got some
nice.
traction. Yeah, yeah. She's my favorite character. I love that. It's a great record, and I really am proud of it. It's probably the best. That has its share of fans online. They talked about it on Ava Geeks and stuff like that. And so I have just been going with that parallel to my filmmaking. It is weirdly like just as important to me personally, but I drew a line for myself in the sand very early on, being like, film is the career that if you have to choose between them, that's the one. And the music that's the reason I haven't pursued touring. That's the reason I haven't pursued getting it on a label or anything like that, because it's just work. And there's so many hours in the day. Like, I know working musicians, and I'm like, that's not a life I want. I don't want to be on the road like that constantly. I don't want to, like, I love playing music live, but it's just, I like making movies more. So putting some of the work I do in the movies and also just distributing it to fans, that is sort of the joy of it for me.
So we touched on your past and present, but where do you like to see yourself a decade from now? Like, as far as writing and music goes, what would you like to see yourself accomplish 10 years from now?
I'd like to get enough budget to pay myself. That is genuinely like the one thing that I've never done it. All of my work I've done for free, essentially. I mean, I'll get royalties and stuff, but I'm never in the budget. And my therapist tells me that's a self-esteem issue. So I'm trying to like actually concoct the amount of budget so I can pay myself.
You got to eat too. You got to put some
Yeah.
food on that table.
Yeah, how about that? How about that? So definitely that. I want to get a theatrical release for some of this shit. I'm like very, I work with low and no budgets because I have to, because I know what I can do and I know what I can accomplish. But hopefully in 10 years, I will be getting actually enough money to do some more impressive things, where I can pay the creatives on my team what they're actually worth, including myself, and get this stuff out to more people, and in a venue that I think would be worth it. In terms of the music, I have no idea. That's always been something that I've been like,
Just kind of
the
rolling.
last 3 or 4. Yeah, the last 3 or 4 albums I've made, I've been like, this might be the last one, and then like 5 or 6 years later, it's just like, oh, never mind. So I don't know. I don't know where I see that one, but at least with my film career, yeah, I hope to be in a more secure place financially in 10 years. That's sort of my goal right now. Not to sell out, to keep doing what I'm doing, but
But not be
hopefully.
hungry while you do it.
Exactly. And not have to, sit around and be like, hey, everybody, please watch it on Amazon Prime. We get a lot more, like, without necessarily having to do that for each release. That would be nice. But also, if that is my lot in life, I mean, fuck it. I'm happy I'm just happy to be making these things and showing people.
Oh yeah, fuck it. So I love that. I love your ideology on that, because it's like, just create, fuck it. The money will come if I'm doing it good enough. And I think that, hopefully your trajectory goes up to where you can focus more on creating and less on marketing.
Yeah, I would love that. That's the goal. That's well put.
I always like to give people a short platform to wrap up, mention any websites, anything that you would like to send people to, plug any of your stuff, or even just anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to mention before we wrap.
Yeah, sure. In terms of places for people to go, I am at Brendan Steere on Twitter, Instagram. My website is brendansteere.com. you'll find me if you Google me, kind of thing. For if they want to see Animosity, it comes out on July 20th on Amazon Prime and a bunch of other subscription VOD stuff. But Amazon is probably the one most people have. It's coming out on Xbox too, which I always forget that Xbox has like a movie streaming service, but apparently will be on there. I didn't either. So all you gamers out there, like definitely watch Animosity. I'd like to mention with Animosity in specific, I'd like to just give a shout out to the lead actress, actually. Tracy Willett is the woman who stars in the film, and I think her performance in it is astonishing. Like, it's one of those things where I think that her work in Animosity is far better than mine. And I think it sort of lives and dies by her performance. She's starting to get back into acting, and I just want people to hire her because she is probably the most talented actress I've ever worked with. And I think that she should be out there fucking racking up awards. So even if you don't love Animosity, you will definitely love Tracy in it. And I just want to, look her up, hire her. Besides that, no, I'm good. Just watch the movie, and I hope you like it.
Awesome. I think that's a good place to end. So I'm going to go ahead and